Welcome to the I Hate Critics Movie Review Podcast. I'm professional film critic Sean Patrick. With me is Jeff.
Hello.
And a special guest returning to the show. Hi, Bob.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good to have you. The last show of the year, we can finally get you here.
Yeah, I think it's been over 6 months at this point. Probably closer to 9. Apologize for that.
Wasn't it Maxxxine? Wasn't that your last show?
Was it Maxxxine?
Did I make it to Maxxxine?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
You did.
I saw it. I don't remember if I made the show or not. I know I saw Longlegs. I mean, I saw a lot of movies in order to be on the show, and then I couldn't make it work. Like Deadpool. I mean, all of them I was ready to go. Not all, the handful, but I don't know. It's just been busy. A lot of kids and a lot of different activities. My son is getting into acting now, which we'll see how that goes.
Wow, that's not an easy profession.
No, not at all. I don't know that he wants to do the profession, but he just likes to play around, and he's doing voice work for my wife's company now. And
if Aaron Taylor Johnson can make it as an actor, he'll be fine.
You just gotta love it enough to be broke your whole life.
The main reason any guy gets into acting, of course, especially at your son's age, is just to meet girls. That's the main reason why you do it. And
in fairness,
that's why I did it.
He's also getting into rapping. So we'll see.
Oh, God. Looks like we have another Chet Hanks on our hands.
Yeah. You want to be encouraging, but just like you guys are too young to be talking about the streets of Sherrard.
Oh, God.
I want you to go up to him and put your hand on his shoulder like a father and just look at him and say, no. No rapping.
I'm trying so hard not to be my dad, but you're probably right.
Actually, just show him Chet Hanks's Instagram, and that should cure it.
You would think, but you'd be amazed at, like, even my daughter's boyfriend has raps that it's just, and it's not even like the good stuff. It's like whatever's out now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Do
you ever watch a friend rap and not cringe?
No,
not once. Every time.
You ever watch 50 Cent?
50
his
Cent?
arm thing?
I had a friend of mine who thought he was an excellent rapper as a kid, and he used to do the entirety of "Bust a Move" by Young MC, and it was just he thought we were laughing with him. We were not laughing with him.
Yikes! That's a yikes for me, dog.
Oh, man. But anyway, that's what's been going on, rapping and acting for my 13-year-old.
Jeff, how's your art?
I decided last week that I was going to work on a Black Christmas 2006 piece, and it's hopefully going to be done by next Christmas because it's going very slowly.
Oh, I was wondering if you got put off by Olivia Hussey's passing.
This week sucked.
Yeah.
First, Olivia Hussey died, and then Jimmy Carter, Linda Lavin, and Angus McInnes died today. He was in Star Wars and Strange Brew. It's like people are like, "Oh shit, it's almost 2025. Let's just peace out." It's weird too because I was just talking. We posted it last week. I was talking with Lynn Griffin about Olivia Hussey and how she didn't do a lot of conventions or anything like that, but she even said hopefully she starts again. And then I knew she'd been ill, but not that ill. So
yeah.
There's
always going to be Black Christmas though. That's always going to be there every year to remind people how great she was.
I mean, I know that if she makes the in memoriam at the Oscars, it's going to be Romeo and Juliet. But how cool would it be if she was in her black Christmas sweater?
Yeah. Well, I mean, considering the reputation of what happened on the set of Romeo and Juliet, I would hope they wouldn't use that.
Oh, I mean, that's all they talk about is how she was, she played Juliet in the definitive Romeo and Juliet. So
Sure.
that will be it.
Let's see. Let's talk about a few things. I want to get into Sony for a moment because I know, Jeff, you and I both saw Craven, so we've got to get that out briefly here. But did you hear what the head of Sony said this week? Basically, he said that the reason that Craven and Madame Web failed was due to critics hating it so much, and critics just went out there to hate those movies, and it stopped people from going to see them.
They wouldn't hate it if they were decent. I have some good things to say about Craven, but overall, it was a bad movie.
But that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. How many actors, like Adam Sandler, for instance, who's made a career off critics hating him? So that's a horrible, that doesn't hold any water.
Exactly. And Morbius, the only money it made was from people hating it. They heard how bad it was and they started going to see it. Yeah, it's very silly. In a time when like there are more critics than there have ever been, and there are fewer critics with any kind of actual profile. I mean, the idea that critics are killing anything at the theater is pretty ridiculous. And that's speaking as a critic. Like, I don't feel like I could, like, anyone in my profession right now is making or breaking anything. I think there's a lot of great critics who are doing a lot of great work, and I do want people to engage in film criticism, obviously, because that's what I do. But at the same time, Roger Ebert doesn't exist anymore. There is no Roger Ebert. Either of you, could you name, like, who is the top film critic in the country right now?
Owen Gleiberman.
You're the only one I know.
No offense, Sean, but
like Owen Gleiberman is barely, like, he's very close to retirement at this point. Like,
yeah, but he's literally the only one I can think of besides you and Linda Cook.
I mean, for me, like, I would say Matt Zoller Seitz over at RogerEbert.com. He's been their lead person for a number of years, and Amy Nicholson, I would say, now at the Los Angeles Times. I think that's going to elevate her certainly in the world. But yeah, people don't have a film critic on the top of their mind the way that they did, 25 years ago when Roger Ebert could make and break movies.
Yeah, I don't. Those movies did not fail because of critics. Those movies failed because of word of mouth of people who went to see them.
And they failed because another reason it fails is that Aaron Taylor Johnson doesn't get people to go to the movies. Nothing against the guy as an actor. Nothing against him as an actor. But does anyone get excited and go, I've got to see that Aaron Taylor Johnson movie?
No, and after Craven, when I went to see Nosferatu, I was just like, oh, fuck.
Because there he was, yeah. Is there an actor that has that power for you? Like, I got to see this. I've got to see the Timothée Chalamet movie, or I've got to see. Movie studios have done this thing that I think the NFL was doing for a long time, and I think it's backfiring in the NFL as well, where they're trying to downplay the names on the back of the jersey and play up the names of the teams. And, so like, I'll go see a complete unknown, but I'm not going to see it for Timothée Chalamet. And I think that's a big part of why so many movies are failing is that Hollywood fails to market their own movie stars. There's just not somebody out there anymore who go, oh, Adam Driver, I got to go see the new Adam Driver movie.
No. I mean, for me, it's probably directors at this point, especially as someone who doesn't go every week anymore. Like, obviously, Robert Eggers got me out to the theaters. But, if you talk about streaming, maybe, but even then, at that point, I'm looking for a different quality of movie. Like, Ryan Reynolds might do it for me, or, someone like that. I would say it's more, Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, that's what gets me to the theater now. And even that's not a guarantee. Like, I still haven't seen Terrifier 3. And there's certain movies, not that that's a great directed movie, but I would say it's directors more than actors at this point for me.
Yeah, I'm always gonna go see an Ari Aster movie first, first weekend. Robert Eggers most usually. But I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go stream Jack Black or Ryan Reynolds necessarily right away unless he's playing Deadpool, and I'm gonna go see that because don't want to be spoiled. Um, but there's like, it's not like, if I'm the people that I would want to go see are people who were, famous 20 years ago. Julia Roberts, if she came out, if she had a theatrical release, I'd go see it. Maybe not the first weekend, but
there was a time, but
Jennifer Lawrence.
I think you both recall, though, there was a time when even as the franchises were big, people were going, I got to see the new Arnold Schwarzenegger. I've got to see the new Mel Gibson. Even though they're starring in franchises that are just as big as they are, you think of Mel Gibson and then you think of Lethal Weapon, you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger and then you think of Terminator. Like, that just does not exist anymore. Chris Pratt may be one of the biggest stars in the world, but I don't think anyone goes, I want to see the new Chris Pratt movie.
Yeah, I would say Tom Cruise might be the only one, but even then, he's still doing franchises.
Yeah, but Mission Impossible and Top Gun are as big as he is anymore. And if he goes away from those, you can see the box office numbers drop off.
That's true.
Of the modern day stars, the only person that I can think of that I would, look forward to seeing in a movie would be Mia Goth or Jennifer Lawrence or Florence Pugh. And that's just because of their performances in previous things. I'm super looking forward to the new Frankenstein movie because it has Mia Goth in it. Not because it's, Guillermo del Toro even necessarily, but
yeah, but to your point, though, it might be the combinations too. Like, I love Florence Pugh, but I didn't see everything she did this year. Not out. I didn't always know it was out until you guys did the podcast. But if it's her with somebody I like, a director or another actor, the combination of the two, that's definitely going to get me there. Mia Goth and Guillermo del Toro is a perfect combination to want to go see something like that. So it is just a different world. It's hard to, I don't know if anybody could. I suppose for me, Joaquin Phoenix would be one. But I don't know if it's going to make me go see it.
But he just put out a movie in 2022 that was, called Come On, Come On, that I guarantee I've heard of and no one else has. Because Hollywood doesn't want to pay any actor $20 million anymore to be in a movie. And because that's just the reality. They want to create where they don't have to pay actors that much money. I mean, they're kind of on the side of Cameron, James Cameron wanting to get rid of actors if they could, because they don't want to have to pay them. I think that's been at the detriment of so many movies actually making some money this year.
I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about there was a new Brad Pitt movie that nobody knew about.
Yeah. Nobody went to. It was a Brad Pitt, George Clooney movie.
Yeah.
On Apple.
And Angelina Jolie just had a new movie drop on Netflix that I guarantee you nobody knows about.
Yeah, Matt Damon had an Apple TV movie. I mean, I saw both of them, but I suppose they got me to watch them. But they were fine. But I wouldn't have gone to the theater for them, either one of them.
But I mean, if they had marketed Anya Taylor-Joy as like a big deal and made a big deal about her, would Furiosa have made more money? I think so. I think that's true.
Maybe a little bit more. Done better. But I think
if they worked on marketing their actors, they could actually make money that way. Like, jersey sales in the NFL dropped when they stopped promoting players ahead of the teams. Fact. And today, most people can't even name their favorite player on their own team. Like, the casual fans cannot do that. Like, the regular fans who are there in the stadium, yeah. But the guys who are casual, just kind of catching in, may not even know which guy is on their team anymore.
Taylor Swift.
And I think Hollywood has done this to themselves out of this desire to not have to pay actors big money. I mean, Marvel. Look at Sony. They thought Craven was a fucking draw. So why bother hiring an actor who could bring somebody to the theater when you think that Craven is the draw, or you think Madam Web is the draw? They were never a draw. Those were not draws. Those were not going to bring anybody to the theater. But they also didn't bother to market. Granted, you don't want to try and market Dakota Johnson. She will just tell you the truth from the beginning.
Well, but see, they did promote Morbius with Jared Leto.
Well, I mean,
and it didn't.
You've got to choose your battles.
And I was just saying it didn't do anything. So maybe they thought, well, if Jared Leto isn't going to get people to see these crappy, not MCU movies, then
yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I think Hollywood is shooting themselves in the foot. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. And it's probably the reason we're ending up with movies like Mufasa and Sonic 3 and of course Craven. I didn't see Sonic 3 or Mufasa for personal reasons, but nothing to do with the movies. But I just had personal things happening. But we did see Craven, Jeff. It was terrible. I actually named it one of the worst movies of the year.
So did I. But now that being said, it had a lot of good actors in it. But when I'm sure he's been fine in certain things, but Aaron Taylor Johnson is terrible. He was terrible in that. He was terrible in Nosferatu. Literally took me out of the movie that I was pretty much into. And he's just not, when he's up against people like Russell Crowe or, even Fred Hurlich, it's just like people who actually act and do, I guess, important movies. Christopher Abbott, who was in Craven way too short of a time. He really shows his ass. And I mean, that is one of his attributes, but he doesn't actually show it. So I didn't actually care. He bombed Silver in the Marvel movies, but he's just not an actor. And I think that really showed when he was supposed to carry a movie like Craven.
Yeah. And I think he's working so hard with that accent that it's just, the poor guy. I mean, who could survive that level of accent trying to be Russian? Russell Crowe can, because Russell Crowe doesn't give a fuck. He just does not care. He knows how big a star he is. He's cashing his paycheck and he's having a good time. And he's the only thing worth watching in that movie. And the ending with him was the best scene in the movie, because he just, I mean, he's like a cartoon character at that point, and it's just very funny, absolutely. Very funny to watch. But nobody else seems to get the joke in Craven. That's the issue, is that no one understands the joke.
And why was Ariana DeBose even in that movie? They gave her nothing.
Yeah.
They gave her nothing.
Yeah, talk about fumbling. She's amazing. Like she was in a movie called ISS that everybody missed this year. Was probably one of the better,
it was really good,
sci-fi action movies of the year, and nobody went to see that. And then she gets trapped in these roles like this, because why isn't anybody trying? If Hollywood was smart, they'd be doing something with her. They'd be trying to find a thing for her to lead in and to put her on magazine covers and promote the fact that she's a movie star. Instead, they're worried about having to pay them.
Yeah, I mean, she's better than that. Almost everybody in that movie, except for Aaron Taylor Johnson, is better than that.
Was it Jeremy Irons as well? Was he in that? Am I thinking of the right movie? No. What movie am I thinking? He's in a different movie. But wasn't there an older actor? Was it just Russell Crowe? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Craven's terrible. It's one of the worst movies of the year. And we sat through it.
Yeah, and then we have 2 weeks off, and I'm like, I had to sit through that piece of shit, and we're not even going to fucking talk about it.
Oh no, I wasn't going to let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, even the terrible CGI animals were better than
Oh god, yeah.
that movie.
The CGI lion who just he drips lion's blood into like the wound that turns him into a tie. Then he's got a potion that the girl gives him, and he turns him into. Oh my god!
Yeah, how many fucking things does he need to happen before he becomes Craven? It's like, make up your mind. Is it the potion or is it the lion's blood?
And that 20-minute sequence where Aaron Taylor Johnson isn't on screen, where it's just the child version of him. Oh my god, that just went on for fucking ever. Just have him get bitten by the lion already, for fuck's sake.
And you think that that's a bad thing until you see him try to do a Russian accent. I'm hoping to say something funny enough tonight when Bob is taking a drink that he spits it out all over the computer screen.
Good luck.
So not even his 22 abs didn't do anything for you?
No. I mean, I've seen him. I think it was I think it was his actual dick, but could have been a stunt dick. I don't know, but like I've seen everything on him, and I'm just like, okay, he's nice to look at, but to have like Craven is known for his outfit, which is made of a lion's head in the comics, right? Like a split down the middle lion's head is his coat, and he gets an approximation of that coat in the last 30 seconds of the movie.
For the sequel.
Well, that's never going to happen. Thank God.
Yeah, Sony has ended this universe. They did announce that. That's over with. They are going to make, obviously, Spider-Man, but, beyond that.
Yeah.
All right.
I wish they could just give it back to Marvel completely instead of being in association with.
Well, they're never giving it up. That's just never going to happen.
Oh, I know that.
All right. So, Bob, I don't know how many movies you saw this year. Did you have enough to make up a list?
I was able to make a list. I actually was able to make honorable mentions too. Got lucky.
Nice. Ooh. All right. Well, I'm going to get a couple of my honorable mentions out of the way first. I think these are maybe movies that you guys haven't had a chance to see yet. One of which is Sing Sing. Coleman Domingo's incredible in that movie. It's about an acting troupe in Sing Sing prison, and it's just absolutely incredible film that everybody should see. And he's definitely getting a Best Actor nomination. Nickel Boys hasn't opened yet, but Ramel Ross is a superstar. The whole film is about a kid who ends up in a kind of a jail, kind of a reformatory. He goes through a lot while he's there, but the whole thing is shot first person, trading between these two young male characters. And it is just packed with power, and it is shot in a way that is just unique and different. The cinematography is incredible. And you would think that this gimmick is going to cause you trouble while you're watching it, but trust me, it gets so very, very, you get used to it eventually, even as they're passing that perspective back and forth. It's really incredible. Flow is an animated film about a cat that is caught in a weather event, a giant flood. Incredible to look at, just an absolutely gorgeous movie. Better Man hasn't opened yet with Robbie Williams, but that is the best music documentary of the year. In a year where we've had like Bob Marley, we've had Angelina Jolie played one, and like we've Timothy Chalamet obviously playing Dylan. I say that this Robbie Williams with a monkey playing Robbie Williams is the best music biopic of the year.
Interesting.
You want to go,
Bob? Mine are pretty normal movies that you've all seen. They just didn't quite make my list. Deadpool versus Wolverine. I loved it. But it's also, I think my brother, he referred to it as like watching National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon, but with Mel Gibson and Danny Glover in the roles. That's a good one. And I thought that was pretty accurate. Immaculate, I liked a lot. And then early on in the year, I saw Civil War, and I thought that was pretty decent. But that's all.
Immaculate is in my honorable mentions as well.
Yeah, mine too. And as is Deadpool and Wolverine. And I had Civil War when I was writing this out by hand. I had that in my honorable mentions too, but I guess I forgot to put that in there. But yeah, I mean, that was a very interesting movie. Not one of my favorites, but very interesting.
Yeah, I liked how it attacked the media without you really realizing they were doing it. Or we did, but like your average, my dad would never notice it. Anyway, continue.
Three that I had, my main list when I first wrote it all was all horror movies, because this is a fucking great year for horror movies. But then I thought, let me kind of diversify a little bit. So I took three of my favorite horror movies and put them in my honorable mentions. One was Smile 2. Another one was Oddity, and Cuckoo with Hunter Schafer. All three of those movies, they could have, a lot of my top 10 could have, made space for one of them. I only took them off because they were horror movies, and my list is very horror heavy this year because it was such a good year. So,
yeah, I got to co-sign you with Oddity and Cuckoo, both of which I would say are honorable mentions as well.
Oddity had the best jump scare in the last 10 years.
Absolutely. That was terrific.
Like, holy shit. I jumped in the theater, and I don't jump in the theater.
All right.
Well, I jump at home. I haven't seen it yet.
Maybe. It's very startling and very scary.
I also didn't get a chance to put a movie that, like, I had almost a tie for number 10. Like, it was just so close, and I finally had to go one way or the other. The Love Lies Bleeding didn't make my list, even though I think it is an incredible film. It's right there off my top 10. But I'll go first. I'll tell you what I'll start with my top 10. My number 10 is Strange Darling, with Kyle Gallner and Willa Fitzgerald, who we told out of order in a chapter form. It uses this form incredibly well. At the same time, the director does an amazing job of making this film look incredible, on top of telling this story in a very unique way. Willa Fitzgerald is kind of the big underdog performer of the year. She belongs in the Academy Award conversation. She's not getting that, but she deserves it. She should be in it because she is that incredible in this movie. And Kyle Gallner is just providing terrific support for her, and he's just such an MVP in elevating the actors around him. He's so great at making other people look good that you can kind of sleep on him as a performer and how good he is. But I did adore the way that he promoted this movie on social media. He would put his whole heart into it, and just was tweeting about this movie all the time, trying to get people to see it and sharing with fans. I thought that was terrific. It's really, really a great movie. And if you haven't seen Strange Darling, I happen to know another critic, friend of mine, who may have this movie at the very top of their list. So, but she's not with us here, but she's a good friend of mine.
I'll talk about it in a little while, but it is on my list. It's higher up, though.
I haven't seen it yet. No, not that I need to ask for forgiveness up in advance. I've only seen like 15 movies. So my number 10 was one I didn't see in the theater because the trailers got so repetitive, and
I don't know.
but I ended up seeing it a few months later, and it was Speak No Evil. I thought it was a solid thriller, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know that it would have made my top 10 if I had seen every movie like you guys have, but it definitely was better than it was bad.
Yeah, that should have been on my honorable mentions. There's so many movies though this year that were like, it just slipped my mind. My number 10 though is Wicked. I added it kind of last minute. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience at the theater. Cynthia Erivo, was perfect, and it made me not hate Ariana Grande. So
major achievement.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the point, though?
Well,
No, I'm just maybe in the sequel.
Yeah, it's not in my top 10, but I do have a lot of nice things to say about Wicked. I especially enjoy the conversations that it's inspired. I do. If you like YouTube, FD Signifier on his second channel has put out a terrific video talking about race and Wicked that is really smart and enlightening. And then there's a lot of, I think, was it the other day? One of a prominent director, I think it was Adam McKay, said that Wicked is the kind of movie that could be banned within 5 years because it is subversive as it is in his eyes. And I mean, when you shoot it from that perspective, I can see what he's saying. I don't necessarily see it happening. I hope not. But then, we've got a fascist dictatorship going on, so who knows what'll get banned and what won't. This podcast will probably get banned. Let's see. My number 9 is another one. Unfortunately, you guys haven't had a chance to see yet, but you will soon. It's called The Brutalist. It stars Adrian Brody as an immigrant architect who moves to America. He's got to start at the very bottom and kind of move his way up. He gets a big leg up when he meets a guy played by Guy Pearce, who is very rich and powerful, and gives him a job to design this building. Into this building, he takes his experience as a person who survived the Holocaust. And that plays a big role as this movie goes on, as does the arrival of his wife, who had been left behind back in the old country. For him to come here, he needed to make a little money first to bring her and his niece over with her. And that will change the dynamic of the movie going forward. Guy Pearce hasn't been this good since Memento. This is a real great bounce back for him after so many years of being in that straight to streaming forest for so many years. He makes a major comeback in this one that could win him Best Supporting Actor if Kieran Culkin decides to pull out. Which is probably the only way he loses. This movie is 3 hours and 30 minutes long. It definitely feels like it. It's also not a feel-good movie, but there's so much of it is so great looking, and Adrian Brody holds it together so well that you don't necessarily you'll feel the 3.5 hours. You will, but you'll be engaged enough to care a little less.
All right. My number 9 is also Wicked. November was a rough month with just, I went through an audit and then, obviously the election, a couple other horrible things that are even worse than that happened, but it was kind of, was kind of the start of pulling out of all that, packed theater, something I haven't had in a while. So you get just when you watch a movie with a crowd, it does elevate the experience. And then, it was a long movie, but it didn't feel like it at all. It flew by.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of, the stuff you could put on the movie, like what was going on with the election, kind of worked well with this movie, even though clearly that wasn't the intent. It helped to, I don't know, there's so much about it that I liked. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting into musicals more than I realized I was capable of.
Very cool.
My number 9 is Longlegs. Originally it was a little higher up, but I did see a couple movies after I saw that kind of pushed it down a little bit. Nicolas Cage's performance was so over the fucking top that it gave me a new respect for him. How is that possible? I know, but it had that. It was kind of like, for me, it was the Silence of the Lambs mixed with something like Mandy. Just so kind of based in reality, and then it just goes off the fucking rails. And I really appreciated that. Plus, his look was so disgusting. He looked like John Travolta, so it was like a sequel to Face Off. In a way.
Deeply disturbing. Yeah, the performance is incredible. It's like a Tiny Tim as a psycho killer. Like, it's just fantastic. It's an honorable mention for me because I've seen a few more movies than most people have. Obviously, I've got movies on here that people haven't seen.
Oh, are you a critic or something?
But yeah, I love Longlegs, and again, a part of a year of horror movies that have been just utterly incredible, like that one, Immaculate, Late Night with the Devil, all movies I wanted to put on my list and couldn't, but it was such an amazing year for horror. And that Longlegs made your list is a testament to just how great that movie is.
I have Longlegs way up high on my list.
My number 8 is again, sorry, another one most people haven't seen. It's Queer from director Luca Guadagnino and starring Daniel Craig, in the story of a very lonely gay man living in South America who is just desperate, just despairing over his ability to connect with other people. He wants to be loved. He wants to have sex. He wants to be cared for, but he wants it his way. That being a younger, very attractive man, and he's not willing to. He's not settling. He's going to go for that. And what he goes for is a young man who isn't quite sure who he is. Is he gay? Is he not gay? He kind of is playing on the margins of that. Is he, maybe gay for pay? Like, you don't really know where this character stands in terms of his sexuality. And that creates a great deal of mystery around him. He does engage in a relationship with Daniel Craig that is portrayed in the film, but the relationship is very fraught. They end up going deep into the jungle together and taking ayahuasca in a scene that is just fascinating to watch. It is just so incredibly well put together artistically and performatively. Just wow, just absolutely stunning. But really, there is no director quite like Luca Guadagnino to examine the idea of that of longing, of that despair that comes from such deep, brutal loneliness, which you would think this movie could be very punishing in the wrong hands. Like, you're just watching this man just so desperately try to cling to somebody who may not want him, or quite clearly maybe doesn't want him, but he makes it so fascinating. And then he's got this thing going on with Daniel Craig's performance. Craig is so vulnerable and yet so masculine and so compelling, because it's James Bond, and it's kind of deconstructing him. That masculine ideal of his is so interesting to watch. It's just an endlessly fascinating movie. I saw it while I was watching it. I wasn't sure if I liked it, and then I waited like 3 or 4 days to write about it, and it all came rushing to me what he was really saying. And when you combine this with another Luca Guadagnino movie that came out earlier this year, it just, again, which will be higher on my list, it just shows that there are themes that he does that he seems to do better and more interestingly than any other director working today.
All right. My number 8 is Late Night with the Devil. I didn't see it in theaters, but I did see it in it while I was on the brink of falling asleep, which added to the experience, I think. Just such a wholly original idea. It was just a really neat movie. I'm glad it exists, and it was a pretty good start to 2024. It's one of the first movies I saw, and I don't know, I loved it quite a bit.
Great lead performance. Malkin he's exceptional, and yeah, I love the idea. It feels like something. It feels like a YouTube ARG, but brought to life.
Right.
Like, I love that I love lost media. It's one of my favorite things to research, is looking into lost media, and that the idea that this could be a form of lost media this was ever more interesting. And then the way they use that idea is fantastic.
Definitely.
That was one of my honorable mentions.
Mine too.
Just I would love to have the psychic character or the debunker come and be in one of the Warren movies in the Conjuring universe.
Right.
That's my ultimate dream. My number 8 was Nightbitch, which I only saw it on Saturday, and it did dethrone Thelma off my list, which was also one of my honorable mentions. That was such a sweet little movie and really said a lot about aging, and it had Parker Posey. So Nightbitch, I didn't really expect much from the trailer. It looked a little kind of stupid. And then I watched it on Saturday and I thought, wow, it's actually has a lot to say. And I like movies where women find their power. And that really, even though she was married to Scoot McNairy, who really just, there's something about him that gives me the eggs. Watching Amy Adams, who in some of her things has been overrated, I think. But just watching her really kind of turn from this frumpy stay-at-home mom into the night bitch, her physical transformation, it's like watching Christopher Reeve go from Clark Kent to Superman. You know, she's stoop-shouldered and kind of has given up. And then once the movie gets going and you see her stand up a little straighter and, you know, hold her head up a little more. And it's by the end of it, you're just like, yeah, okay, good. It turns out exactly the way I wanted it to. So yeah, that jumped up onto my top 10.
That leads perfectly. Go ahead, Bob.
I want to see that one so bad. I love Amy Adams, so I probably love the movies that you think she's overrated in. But this one, I looks great. That it was only shown at that one theater, right? It never came to.
Yeah, but it's on Hulu now.
It's on Hulu.
Yeah,
I will have to watch that sooner than later.
Absolutely, because it leads perfectly to my number 7, which is also Nightbitch. I love the movie for being. It's just so raw and so honest. There's this thing that we've done in this country where parents, and mostly specifically moms, aren't allowed to talk about the things that they gave up to be moms. That's just not a conversation we let them have as a culture. We tend to try and force parents into constantly demonstrating how grateful that they are that they have children, and it's not an either or situation. Of course, you're grateful to have your children, but at the same time, there are things you've had to give up to be a parent, and we don't have that conversation. We try and force parents into a box where they can't have that conversation or be seen as a bad parent. This movie
like the podcast
conversation. Yeah. This movie engages that conversation openly and boldly, and Amy Adams is brilliant at it. And I thought Scoot McNairy was absolutely perfect. I think he's in fact delivered 2 of the best supporting performances of this year. This performance is exceptional as just this guy he's not a bad guy. He's
oblivious.
He's oblivious. He's just kind of doing his own thing, and he thinks he's doing the right stuff, but he's not paying attention enough. He's not a villain per se, but he's not a good enough husband. And he engages. He walks that line very, very well. That idea. There's that whole kind of. And people kind of treat it comedically, like that idea of men pretending to be or playing up their own incompetence so that they can get their wife to do things. And he is the perfect like example of that guy who's just he kind of is incompetent, but he's also just not stepping up enough. And I thought that was great. The other performance that he gives is a silent performance in A Complete Unknown, where he plays Woody Guthrie. And he's dying in a hospital, and Bob Dylan has come to New York specifically to meet him and see him. And the support that he gives to Timothée Chalamet in those scenes where he's not saying anything, he is making everyone in that room better because he's there. And just incredible to watch. I wish I liked that movie more than I do because his performance is so great. It's not a bad movie at all. It's just I don't love it enough, I guess. I don't really. There's a lot of. I think it's more typical of a biopic. Which I'm so sick of typical music biopic. But
he was really
go ahead.
He was really good in Speak No Evil. I will give him that. There's just something about him. It's just kind of, I don't know. It just turns me a little bit, but maybe it was from 12 Years a Slave. I don't know, but yeah, he was really good in Killing Them or Speak No Evil. So.
But yeah, I love Nightbitch. I think everybody needs to see it. Amy Adams is incredible. Mary Heller's direction is exceptional. It's a great movie.
All right. My number 7 is a movie that pissed off half the comic book world. It's the new Joker movie. I love how it pissed everybody off. I like how it confirmed what I believed in the first one. It was really well made. I feel like 95% of the criticism comes from people that haven't seen it, because with as little money as it made, there's no way that many people hate it. That just doesn't make sense because nobody saw it. So I just thought it was really well done. I thought Lady Gaga was phenomenal. I thought Joaquin Phoenix was phenomenal. I love that Todd Phillips just kind of said "fuck you" to everybody. I don't know. I thought the whole thing was just really well made, easy to watch, and I thought it was a perfect compliment to the first one.
I loved how it seemed to, for me, it fully reframed the first film by raising the fact that he is not the Joker that you know. He may be the inspiration for the actual Joker. Arthur Fleck was never really the Joker. That's the point. I think if anybody actually watched the movie, they would have got that. And I think that's maybe what he was going for from the beginning, was telling a story that is actually leading to the actual Joker, as opposed to telling a story about Joker. And I think that's it makes the first movie far more interesting. It makes this idea of the whole Joker more interesting. I think you're definitely onto something. I think a lot of dude bros heard that the guy's going to sing. I'm not doing that.
Right.
That's musical number 2 on Bob's list, by the way.
Yeah, do I know anymore? I don't know. I don't think so. But no, I've never thought he was the real Joker, even in the first one. I think that's part of why I liked it so much. And I don't know that I needed it confirmed, but I thought it was cool that they did. But anyway,
I put it on my worst of, just because I just didn't connect with it at all. I thought that he was doing that, that thing where let's make ourselves really ugly and skinny to, make sure that everybody knows we're very serious actors. I did like Lady Gaga. I thought that, the musical numbers were the best part for me. And
right.
if it had just been if it had been an album where they just did, those two sang songs that told a story, I would have been much better with it. But it left me kind of cold.
It's cool. At least you saw it before you badmouthed it.
Oh, yeah. What did make my number 7 was a movie that nobody else saw, which is Problemista. I don't know if you have even heard of that movie, Bob.
Mm-mm.
I thought we were going to talk about it on the show, and then Sean couldn't get to it. But it stars Julio Torres and Tilda Swinton. And he plays a toy designer who moves to the big city, and he wants to, he's hoping to get a job so he can stay in the country and make his mother proud. And so he meets Tilda Swinton, and she hires him on a kind of a contingency basis to get her husband's artwork out there. And her husband has been frozen cryogenically, and it's the performances in it are really what made it for me. I think we all know that Tilda Swinton can do just about anything she wants to, and playing a delusional Upper West Side kind of very demanding, like if you put Meryl Streep from The Devil Wears Prada in a blender with, I don't know, Kate Winslet and Eternal Sunshine, and you just mix them up, and that's who you get is her character in this. And she's just unhinged in every best possible way. And Julio Torres is playing it like his nervous self, and he's just always, like, oh God, how am I going to do this? And he wants to do it so badly that he'll debase himself in every possible way to do it. I just thought it was a really, really beautiful little movie that I don't think enough people saw.
I wish I'd had a chance to see it, honestly. I really wanted to see it, just to never had the opportunity come up. But speaking of Tilda Swinton, though, another honorable mention that I couldn't get onto my list was A Room Next Door, which is her and Julianne Moore, and directed by Pedro Almodovar, which is an exceptional movie about it's about perspective. It's about how we tell stories about about our lives, and that intersection between who you are and who you really are. Tremendous film. Of course, because Almodovar is a fucking genius. My number 6 is Baby Girl. The nice return to form for Nicole Kidman, directed by Helena Rain. Tells the story of a CEO who has pretty much everything except a regular orgasm. She has, she really,
I can relate.
close, but she's a CEO. She's got a lot of money. She's got 2 great kids. She's got a husband played by Antonio Banderas, who's a playwright. She's very successful. She's got a great houses, multiple houses. Like, she's got everything, but sexually, she's just not getting there. She meets this guy, Harris Dickinson, who she meets when he's able to stop a dog from attacking her, just by his commanding presence. He's got a little secret to that, but you'll have to see it to see that. And she begins this relationship with him where it's the one aspect of her life where someone can tell her what to do, because in her regular life, nobody can tell her what to do. But she gives over that power to him. There's also like the kink of like risking this perfect life that she has for this thing that could absolutely, ruin everything. So there's that kink to it as well. It's very exciting. The interplay between her and Harris Dickinson is both sexy and funny. I also think that Harris Dickinson's character, as much as he's been portrayed as like this dominant character, he's not. He's just a guy who really knows what he wants, and he's more opportunistic. He's not Jamie Dornan in 50 Shades of Grey, engaging in BDSM in that way. It's not about, I don't think necessarily this is a movie about a dom and a sub necessarily. It's just a woman who really just kind of needs a break more than anything, where someone other than her is making all the decisions. And that's kind of like part of the excitement that draws her to him. It's also got a final scene that is just, it's just perfect. It's a perfect final scene that I just really, really love to really give her the opportunity. I also love the casting of Antonio Banderas. I know all of us grew up with like Antonio Banderas is one of those guys that like your wife or your girlfriend, that's like on her hall pass list. Like, he's just this machismo guy. He is just this ultimate sex symbol. Casting him as a guy who can't give his wife an orgasm is like, that's kinky. I love that. I love this movie. Baby Girl, my number 6.
Yeah, I want to see that. From here on out, at least the next 5, I could probably interchange them equally. So I don't know. I like them all kind of the same. And my number 6 is Furiosa. I loved Fury Road, despite Sean's terrible takedown of it. I'm kidding. I know Sean liked it. He just, but no, the prequel to Fury Road, it was fun. It was well made. It was action packed. Anna Taylor-Joy, is that her name? Is an incredible actress. And just the whole movie, to me, it's a ton of fun, and made me want to go back and watch all the Mad Maxes, because I didn't like the first 3 originally. And it kind of elevated those for me as well, and kind of started to understand what that world was. And it was just, I don't know. I think Fury Road helps me put it this high on my list, but I absolutely love this movie.
I like it more now than I did when I saw it. Like, I was rereading my review and I see a lot of things that I liked about it then, but it's actually stuck with me pretty well, to the point where I would almost consider that one of my honorable mentions as well. She's incredible in it, and I actually honestly prefer it a little bit to Fury Road, which is also a movie I did like. I did like it.
Just giving you a hard time.
My number 6 is, I know I'm going to hear about how it should be higher, but my number 6 is Honora. Mikey Madison, I hated her in Scream 5. She just set my teeth on fucking edge. But here, I was on her side the whole time. I wanted, her to win out. I wanted everything to go her way. But then the movie kind of upended my expectations, and it got better when things started to not go her way. she just really jumped off the screen, and it could have been her playing against cardboard cutouts at some points, because she was just taking everything that I had as a viewer, just with every, like, her gestures and her, the way she moved her body, the way she spoke, the way she just was so confrontational all the time, even in intimate settings. She was just confrontational because that's kind of how she grew up. It could be higher on my list. I just had some, I had some that I really, kind of, like every year, kind of changed or tied, or, and that dropped that down just a little bit. But yeah, that was my number 6.
I'll get to Anora in a little bit, but my number 5 is probably going to be controversial for this show, considering, but it was up in my top 2 for most of the year, and it just because of just the way things shook out, I had to drop it down. My number 5 is Maxxxine, the third, and of course the trilogy with X and Pearl, and Mia Goth's extraordinary performance here. She's just so awesome. You could almost forget how awesome she is just because she's done 3 of these now, and she's been incredible in all 3 of them. But the Kevin Bacon performance, the way he captured how sleazy and gross this is, but also kind of sexy, lurid, exciting. The serial killer aspect is well played. The what little gore there is exceptional. Just such a well told story. It's engrossing. This movie, people dismiss it because of the milieu, the sleaziness of it, but it's so engrossing when you give yourself over to it, especially if you're carrying over from the previous 2 movies. It's so much more engaging. All 3 of these movies are so great. It's hard to say that Maxxxine would be the number 3 out of that list, but it is. Pearl, X, Maxxxine for me, but I do love Maxxxine a lot. It is my number 5.
It's my number 5 as well. Like I said, these, Furiosa through my number 2 are all kind of very equal. It's also my 3rd favorite of the trilogy. And I struggled with, should it be number 2? Should it be number 3? I think at the end of the day, it was, I really don't know why it's number 5, other than I just was more caught off guard by other movies that are above it. And this one was just exactly what I thought it would be, which is perfect, and everything about it was perfect. And with that, though, comes with the experience of, it ended up being a great experience, but there wasn't the added thing from the outside that made it better. Like with the other 4 movies I have above it, I had actual experiences in the theater that kind of elevated it. So, but I love Maxxxine. It's a great movie, and I'm sure it'll be much higher on Jeff's list.
We'll get to it. My number 5 was Heretic. This was not one that I was expecting anything from the trailer. Really, I went and saw it at the Last Picture House, and I was so drawn in, and I didn't expect to be. I expected it to be, a cat and mouse thriller, but it really was a lot more about something, about the search for meaning and the things people will do to figure out why we're here and what is life all about. And you add that in with the horror elements and the performance of Hugh Grant, who he does not ever do that much for me. But in this movie, I hung on every word he said. I just could not get enough. I would love to see actual prequels. I think we talked about this, Sean. I would love to see prequels where he goes around and he's, talking about religion with people and the meaning of life and where do we come from? Where do we go from here and all that. It's just like such a good, surprising movie for me.
And there's a wonderful thing that's bubbling underneath the surface of Heretic, which is this idea of religion being something you have faith in, and religion being something you have to believe in. Like, it has to be, I need proof. I need proof of my religion, as opposed to I just have faith in God. I love the idea that this movie takes that idea and really puts it under a microscope and forces you to kind of consider where you fall on that. Do you need, if you're a Christian, do you need proof that Jesus actually existed, or do you just have faith that he existed and everything he said was real? You know, that kind of thing. This movie has that bubbling under throughout, and of course, I mean, Hugh Grant's fucking incredible in that movie.
But they also don't fuck it up. I mean, it's such an easy subject matter to destroy the movie with, and so no, I'm with you there.
All right, my turn, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
My number 4 is Anora. My 4, 3, and 2 could have easily been switched around. Like, it's just these 3 movies that are just basically interchangeable in terms of how much they could all be tied for number 2, as far as I'm concerned. But Anora, Mikey Madison is just so awesome in this movie. She just makes the whole thing work. This could be like kind of a meandering at times. Sean Baker can kind of linger a little bit over certain things, but when you have a performance at the center that is that magnetic and that engaging, it's impossible to get it wrong. Also, I think Sean Baker's direction is underrated. I don't think people give him enough credit for what he's doing with the camera and the cinematography in this movie. The angles he's choosing, the way he's capturing her performance, I think is very smart, and it's really aiding the way you see her, building her up, providing her the platform to be as great as she is. It's really, his direction is so understated, but that's the kind of direction I love, is when you don't really notice how great the directing is until later when you're taking time to really think about it. It's just extraordinary. It's just extraordinary in every way. I love this movie.
I need to see that one. Sounds really good. My number 4 is The Substance. I was on vacation like a couple weeks before it came out, and Demi Moore was on television, and the people her with were just commenting on, why does she do that to her face? Why does she have to look like that? And which is kind of disgusting, and listening to that. But then to go and see this movie right after that, and on top of that, the body horror stuff, which I haven't seen done this well in forever. The performances by both Demi Moore and, was it Margaret Qualley? Is that her name?
Yeah.
I just absolutely loved, and the themes were so much more than just women still dealing with their looks. It's way beyond that. That's definitely a theme, but there's so many different things going on here, and just the way it goes out of control without losing itself as a movie just caught me off guard more than I just wasn't expecting it. I really didn't even know what I was in for. I just, my brother and I called me, he's like, hey, you want to go see this? And I was like, sure. So I wasn't prepared, I guess, for the body horror stuff, because I didn't know what it was. I just remember that interview on like Good Morning America, whatever the hell show we were watching. And because of being unaware, it just caught me off guard, and became one of my favorite movies of the year.
We'll get to my substance later.
Same. Same. My number 4 is Strange Darling. Everything Sean said about Kyle Gallner, he's like Jamie Lee Curtis. If you put him in a movie, he is going to do everything possible to get you to see it and love it. But with the exception of his tend to be attached to good movies, unlike Jamie Lee Curtis in Borderlands or Halloween Ends. The way it sets you up and your expectations is what really made this like top 5 for me. Will Fitzgerald is so good and can change on a dime depending on what perspective you're watching her from, whether she's good or bad or indifferent in a scene. Just the way she has this weird vulnerability about her that can be used to deceive you or to, really make you sympathize with her. it had such a great small cast, and the way it ends up, I was just kind of gobsmacked by it, thinking, I think I saw that the same weekend as I saw In a Violent Nature, and I kind of knew what to expect from that going in.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. I expected it. But with this, everybody said go in blind. Do not even think about reading anything about it. I'm so glad I didn't, because it's just one of those movies that I could probably watch and pick out little things over and over again. And I probably will.
I loved it the first time I saw it, and then I've loved it even more since then, to the point where, like, yeah, I was debating that and Love Lies Bleeding, because I love that movie too, but they both are equally kind of shocking in their own way. But the fact is that gimmick, there could be the chapters, the way they're arranged in Strange Darling, could have been just a gimmick, but it is so essential to how he tells that story. It's truly just the director has thought of every single detail of and where exactly to place those chapters and those incredible reveals that are in the movie. Just extraordinary stuff.
Yeah, there's that scene of them in. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's that scene of them in the truck, and for a few minutes you're like, oh God, why is it going on so long? Why don't they just get to it? And then as it unfolds, you're like, oh. And then the next chapter, you're like, oh, there's a reason why that was so kind of expository.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's a great looking movie. Like that scene in the truck, lit by just that neon sign, is just fucking gorgeous. And then the hotel room, the cabin, all the settings are perfectly lit. They're gorgeous. The cinematography is fantastic. Yeah, Strange Darling is a great movie. My number 3 is Challengers, the second Luca Guadagnino movie on my list, with Zendaya, Mike Faist, and Josh O'Connor. I'm been a tennis fan years ago, but I hadn't been into tennis for years. But this movie is not tennis; it's sex. It's sex is what this is. They're having sex. Josh O'Connor, Mike Faist are having sex without playing tennis. This movie is it's as strange as it is, and how much it looks nothing like Queer. Just kind of shows just Luca Guadagnino's range. He's just incredible, but also it still does kind of have the same theme. This idea of wanting things you can't have, or this unfulfilled desires, trying to live into societal expectations. Like in Queer, Daniel Craig. It's the 1950s. He's an older gay man who wants to express the fact that he's gay, and trying to do that in America is kind of dangerous. Going down to South America, where people don't care, much easier to live the life that he wants to live. In Challengers, you've got Mike Faist and Josh O'Connor, who are kind of pressured into the roles that they're in, as is Zendaya. But I think she sees everything a little bit clearer than they do. Obviously. It's so incredible. And then building that amazing soundtrack, building to that huge climax at the end, which is a climax in more ways than one. I just thought that was just amazing to watch. And just pulling off the trick that he pulls off at the end is just superb. Guadagnino, I don't know if I've ever had a director have 2 movies in my top 10 list before. It's amazing. Just to look at his range and his ability, it's just so exciting.
Yeah, I have yet to see that one too. It's been on my list, and just getting my wife to want to watch it has been the problem. My number 3 is Heretic. Growing up Catholic, this movie was a little more personal to me than Maxxxine or The Substance, which is why I have it a little higher. Mixed with the fact that I didn't know it was going to be this good. And having this conversation with, my brother and other people growing up all the time, this is a very common type of conversation that I would have. And now, just being a full-blown atheist, I don't care. But it brought me back to, all those debates and whatnot. And then the fact that it's such an easy thing to fuck up and go down a downward spiral that throws this movie and makes it a disaster, that it doesn't do that, mixed with Hugh Grant and everything else in it. I was really impressed. Plus, I always kind of thought Beckenwoods was overrated. And that too, going with a little bit lower expectations, just really elevated this movie for me. And it was also the first one I've seen at the Last Picture House. So, just an all around really fun, good experience. And, yeah, that's why it's number 3.
My number 3 is I Saw the TV Glow. Sean and I had a really, really good conversation about this movie and how it's so heartbreaking, but so like engaging at the same time that you just, I dare anybody to watch this movie and know what it's about and not empathize with the trans experience. Just every, I mean, even down to Fred Durst. Out of the 2 movies that he was in this year, to see him play something like this was so much more surprising. Even though he was just in the background a lot, but just his presence there, knowing that it was him and knowing that it was such a sympathetic kind of movie. I know that Sean's going to talk about this, so I don't want to say too much about it, but I just, that the last 5 minutes of the movie was probably one of the 2 most heartbreaking things that I saw at the movies this year.
Oh, amen to that. Yeah, Justice Smith, he should be in the conversation for Best Actor this year. It's a shame that and this movie belongs in the Best Picture conversation. Yeah, I Saw the TV Glow as my number 2. It's so incredible. And Jane Schoenbrun, I mean, with this, and we're all going to the World's Fair, was kind of like the demonstration of what a great director she is. And now, this just is the further proof of the concept that she's a genius. Her first masterpiece. The use of pop culture to tell the story as well. The parallels to Buffy the Vampire Slayer are just incredible, and the amazing supporting performances. It's so emotional. And as somebody who has 2 trans people in their family, I just feel it was hitting me on in an entirely different way. So there's a lot of emotion tied to the way this movie goes, and then it's just so incredible. Just the staging of each scene is so essential. She makes every moment matter, and there's just a brilliant little scene where Justice Smith and his mom are just sitting on some bleachers, and it's framed in a way that's it's perfect. The framing is telling as much of the story as the dialogue is. It's beautiful. That's pure filmmaking. This movie's amazing. If you haven't seen this, you're missing out. You got to see I Saw the TV Glow.
I'm definitely missing out. This is another one I've not been able to convince my wife to watch with me. But I need to either watch it on my own or try harder. Because I think I was on the show you guys talked about it, actually. You brought me back for Strangers, if I remember right.
Yeah, sorry
Speaking
about
of worst lists.
Yeah, that's coming up. After Jeff.
My number 2, and I don't know, maybe I'm romanticizing it more than I should, is Longlegs. Just the whole idea of Silence of the Lambs meets kind of a supernatural thing, and for it not to fall apart, I found really entertaining. I didn't know. Let me rephrase this. I knew Nicolas Cage was in it, but I didn't find out till like right before we went and watched it. So I really didn't know what to expect from him. And, obviously early on in the podcast, we romanticized it. Early on, kind of after Josh left maybe, or towards the end of Josh being here. Like Nicolas Cage could do no wrong. And then he started doing wrong. So for this to come out, it kind of brought it back. Like when Jeff said Sounds of the Lambs meets Mandy, I mean, and to have it work, because if you said that out loud before seeing the movie, you would think it's gonna be a terrible movie. And I it's stuck with me since then. It's been my number one all year long, up until a couple of days ago. And I don't know. And maybe I'm missing something because I'm not as like I'm not going every week like I used to. So I may be romanticizing this more than I should, but it was a fun experience. Really neat. I was also starting to get into like T-Rex, oddly enough, around that time, trying to go back and listen to their catalog and putting together a playlist for that more people can listen to than just me. And not that never mind, don't worry about that part. But T-Rex played a role in it. I don't know, just the whole thing. It was just, the timing was really cool for me. It just, I just really loved the movie, and maybe if I was on the podcast more, it would have fallen down, but it didn't.
Okay, my number 2, and I gotta say that this, up until this weekend, it was really, really hit or miss on which one was going to be number 2 and which one was going to be number 1. But number 2 is The Substance. I know that when we did the show during it, when it came out, Sean said it was, he never wanted to see it again. Well, I wanted to see it again, and I watched it again, and it was more unsettling the second time for me. Which drove it down just one spot, because it is such a gorgeous, haunting, like sad movie. And when we talked about it before, I said that my kind of thesis of the movie is that women are gorgeous, wonderful creatures until they're 50, and then they're invisible, and then they're monsters. But then when they actually become a monster, they're completely invisible. And watching it again, I was struck by that. Like the Eliza Sue monster. That the fact that she comes in and she's invisible, her body is completely misshapen, but she just staples a face to her face, and suddenly nobody cares. They just assume who she is. The themes are there. It was much more unsettling to watch again. And I don't know if it's just because of everything that goes on this time of year or what, but it's one that I don't think I will watch as much unless I'm showing it to somebody as I will my number 1.
Yeah, obviously, I think everybody knows what my number 1's going to be. So we'll take a brief sojourn into the worst of the year. I didn't write a full worst of the year list this year because, like, 2 of the worst movies I saw this year, nobody's ever heard of. The Bricklayer with Aaron Eckhart is one of the worst action movies ever made. It is so inept. It is painfully inept. But yes, no one cares. The Reverse the Curse with David Duchovny is the only movie I walked out of this year. It was just torture to fucking watch that fucking movie with David Duchovny trying to be Archie Bunker, a modern Archie Bunker. It's just so fucking good. It's just shit. I was about 35 minutes in and I got up and walked out. The actual memorable bad movies, Craven, Madam Web, those would be my other. Obviously, we talked about those earlier. Then the number 2 worst movie of the year is Here. Robert Zemeckis is Here. I fucking hate it so much.
I forgot about that.
What a piece of trash that is. It's just an absolute garbage movie. It's just so gimmicky and terrible. And God bless you, Lisa Kudrow, for speaking out on that fucking movie too. She said she called out the horrible use of AI in the movie, and good for her. I like that.
I have to look that up. I would love to read that because I hated that movie too.
But there's only one worst of the year. This is like my number 1 was so far ahead of everything else in my best of list, and my number 1 in the worst of list is so far ahead of everything else. The Crow remake. I'm still recovering from the Crow remake. It was the most painful movie going experience of my life. My review is like 2,500 words long, and it's just a therapy session of me just rambling about the entire movie, trying to make this thing make sense because it makes no sense. And I'm baffled that anybody has watched The Crow and been able to say, oh, no, that all made sense to me. How? How did that make sense to you? Explain to me how any of that bullshit made sense to you.
I didn't see it. Otherwise, it would have made my list, I'm sure.
It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
That's why I don't read Sean's reviews, Bob, before I go see a movie or we talk about it on the show, because I read his review of that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to save myself the $10 and just skip it. I don't care. He can talk about it. I don't have to. So yeah. Do you have a worst of list?
Just Strangers.
Yeah.
Okay. That made mine.
Amazing. It's amazing that there are like 6 movies I have that are worse than that one.
I'm just going to read my list, and Sean, you can agree with me or tell me if any of these hit yours. Night Swim, one of the worst fucking movies I've ever fucking seen in my entire fucking life. Great 2-minute like short. It was a funny idea. It does not need to be a full blown movie.
It's the modern deathbed.
Yeah, it ruined Carrie Condon for me. Night Swim, Imaginary, Sasquatch Sunset.
Oh yes, that was so close to my worst of list. That should have been on there. Actually, I hate that fucking movie.
Terrible movie.
God awful. I don't. You want to reveal yourself as an asshole hipster who's just just condescending to other people. Tell them you love Sasquatch Sunset. Tell me you're pretentious without telling me you're pretentious.
I love Jesse Eisenberg. I love Riley Keough.
Yeah.
But if I ever met them, I'd probably be like, look, I love everything you've ever done except for Sasquatch Sunset.
Yeah.
It was grotesque.
I honestly think Ari Aster was playing a prank on us all producing that movie. I think it was a prank, and I'm just hopefully one day he'll explain that.
Yeah. Joker, Apartment 7A, which is a prequel to Rosemary's Baby, which terrible.
I haven't heard of it.
It was Strangers, Red One, Trap, Craven, and Madam Web.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, Trap is Trap's bad.
Oh, really?
But not.
I haven't seen that one
Trap.
yet.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
You never know with him. Sometimes he hits it out of the park. Sometimes he strikes out. Really, nothing in between.
It really is. That's what makes him great, though. Like he's constantly. That's what I love about Shyamalan. He's constantly on the tightrope, and he could tip over into something terrible, but he's never going to make something boring. Like old is bad, but it's not boring. It's bad. It's not boring. The Happening is bad. It's not boring. I remember everything about that fucking movie. Lady in the Water, terrible film, but I remember every inch of it.
Absolutely.
I love him. Keep doing that. If you're gonna be bad, just go balls out with it.
Absolutely.
All right. Obviously, I think everyone knows what my number one is. It's The Substance. It's my favorite movie of the year. I've never had a film going experience quite like it. Jeff was there. Apparently, I was not holding myself
by accident.
I was.
Sean was just making noises.
I was shaking. I was shaken. Like I was just stunned. I've not seen anything quite like it. I've seen every David Cronenberg movie. I've seen every David Cronenberg movie, and I'm still like, I could watch The Fly before I could watch this again. But like I said, I love this movie. I never want to see it again because the experience was so fucking visceral for me. It's like both the themes and the presentation of them. The direction is so incredible. The visuals are so incredible. The crispness of the lighting, the close-ups, the choice of lenses, the way she shoots. Just like Dennis Quaid eating shrimp is one of the most terrifying things I've seen in a movie this year.
Probably the grossest thing in the movie.
Oh God, horrible. But then you've got that wonderful idea of casting Demi Moore, who of course was the subject of so much discussion of her body throughout my entire life. And you said something earlier about the way people judge women for getting plastic surgery. And I think what you're doing is revealing more of yourself when you do that than you are. It's really the watching movie stars age is more of a reflection of our fear than it is anything really about them. It's our fear of aging that's really bothering us. I think people poke fun at older actresses, especially as a way of kind of trying to distance ourselves from the idea that we are also getting old. But that you would engage that idea in the way that Coralie Fargo does in this movie, and putting that idea under a microscope it's a really fascinating choice. And the way, it's not just that she's using Demi Moore, though. Demi is giving it everything. This is the best she's ever been on screen. And she's done, I don't have a lot of favorite Demi Moore movies, but she's always been solid. She's always been solid in what she does. She's always had a great presence, but this is watching her truly act. And I think she's so connected to this performance that it adds so much to it. Not only her presence, but just the fact that she is so deeply committed to it just sells it even further. And it's just, the gross stuff is so gross. And I say that, it sounds like I'm saying it's a bad thing. It's not. It's so effective. It's so fucking effective. Like what Cronenberg did in The Brood, or in the recent Viggo Mortensen Crimes. I can't remember but that movie's got a lot of real gross body horror to it. But it's so reminiscent though. Crimes of the Future. It's not derivative of Cronenberg though. No. She's got her full own vision going on here. Coralie Fargo. She's got so much more of her own ideas, and she's taking it to such an extreme that at a certain point it becomes impossible for me to watch, and then it comes back around to something I can't look away from. And I've never had a movie physically act upon me the way this movie did. I felt this movie physically as well as emotionally and intellectually, and that's an experience unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
When Sean and I go to the movies together, when we go to the movies together, we always stand around and talk about them for a little while afterward. He's just like, I've got to go. I gotta go.
I actually was
going to go home and watch The Wizard of Oz.
I did, which I did. I did do that. And I also almost asked Jeff to follow me home because I was so affected. I wasn't sure if I should be driving.
Oh, wow. I do think, in all honesty, part of why Longlegs is so high on my list too, is I believe you sent us both a text afterwards with the way you felt after seeing that, which added, because we had a similar experience with Midsummer. And so, just kind of trying to relate to what you went through there. I really do feel like if I had been on the podcast for The Substance, it'd probably be even higher on my list. And I had it pretty high. So, but not being able to be part of that conversation, those conversations always added to the experience. And that is kind of a bummer, missing out on that. But I don't know. It is a fantastic movie.
All right, Bob, what's your number one?
My number one I had probably on my list before I even saw it. And then I just never moved it. And I noticed it's not on either one of your lists, so maybe I'm wrong. But, to me, Ari Aster and Robert Eggers are like 1 and 2 right now. I thought Nosferatu was fantastic. I loved everything about it. I loved the way it looked. I loved the way it made me feel. It was a passion project, and I could feel this passion coming through. The mustache didn't bother me. The whole thing was, I don't know. It was just really neat. And, I'm also pulling from old episodes where we talked about The Witch and The Lighthouse, some of my favorite movies ever. And, bringing that to this. And I think The Lighthouse is still my favorite thing he's done. But it was just so well done. Every frame could be a poster on your wall. It wasn't like the original. It was just its own thing, and it was clearly a passion project of his. And I loved everybody in it. I know Anna Taylor-Joy was supposed to be the star, but I thought Lily Rose Depp was really good in it. I thought Willem Dafoe was amazing. It was just, I don't know. I really don't know what
I
you
like that
guys
he
think
was
of it at all.
understated this time
Yeah, I mean, he was a perfect
for him.
spot. Yeah. Well, just kind of the Van Helsing type character. Yeah, I don't know. I really, really, really enjoyed it, but I also, one, you got recency bias, and two, the A24 Robert Eggers thing that I already kind of have him on a pedestal that maybe that, like I said, before I even saw it, it was probably going to be my number one. So that's what happens when you leave a podcast, guys.
It reminds me of like what happened with me and Maxxxine. Is like Maxxxine would be higher on my list if I weren't so expecting how great it was going to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I didn't love Nosferatu. I thought I wanted to see more of Robert Eggers, and I wanted to see more of why he wanted to do this. And I didn't feel like I got that. I didn't feel like I got the reason why he wanted to make this. I think on a technical level, on an acting level, I think it's incredible in many ways, and he's extraordinarily talented. But it didn't go to the next level for me.
Like most movies that I talk about on the show, I think it could have been shorter. I know I always say that. It's been pointed out to me by listeners. I always say that. However, this movie, gorgeous. I mean, it was like seriously the most gorgeous movie I've seen in 5 years. Every shot, like you said, it was like a Renaissance painting.
Right.
The scene where he's in the Romani camp and the woman who breaks from the wall to go and tell him not to go, I looked at her, and as soon as she shut up, I'm like, she should be like a bigger part of this movie, because look at her face and and then she breaks away from the wall holding her torch, and it's like perfection. And he's walking up to the castle and he goes through those trees and the snow is slightly falling, and I was like, that is really fucking gorgeous. Lily Rose Depp was very, very good. I don't ever need to see that many close-ups of her face for a while, though. Just, it was like he was in love with her face, and she's a very, very pretty face. But I just, one of the things that I just noticed after was that it was super tight close-ups all the time of everybody. And I realized what he was going for.
Right.
But a little movement in the frame, I think would have. I know that it's based on a silent movie where everybody is kind of either moving exaggeratedly or is in the frame just for a second before they go to the title cards. But I wanted a little more interacting instead of just acting.
Right. I will say
that was the only knock against it.
One thing I said to my brother, we saw it together, and I was like, I wish from now on, I hope he does original stuff, because to Sean's point, I don't know how you're basically remaking the Dracula story or Nosferatu story, either one. Yeah. So you're already kind of confined there. I think you did it as good as you can do it, but I still put The Witch and The Lighthouse ahead of this, and those weren't even my number ones those years. So, I haven't been to a lot of movies. But I do think on a technical level, it was just, I don't know. It's kind of like liking Rush versus Nirvana, one's more just kind of feel, and it is what it is. The other one's very technical, and I went with technical this time. But I mean, I get what Sean's saying too, because it's not, you're getting Robert Eggers telling a story that already exists versus getting Robert Eggers, which when he did The Lighthouse, we did The Witch, those, some of the best movies that, I still go back to those. I absolutely love those movies.
It feels like he's playing with his toys on this one for me. Like he really wanted to play with this story and these lights, and really exercise his technical skill, and he does that incredibly. He does that incredibly well. It's on a technical level, it's flawless. But yeah, I just felt like there should have been something more, something he's communicating more about what drew him to want to tell this story.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah. Absolutely gorgeous. Really great cast. I mean, really, really, really was, except for what's his face, Craven the Hunter. He literally did take me out of the movie twice. I was just like, oh my god, I can't even emote correctly. Um, yeah, that was a knock against it for sure for me. Like, um, when I saw, I was like, oh, is that Aaron Taylor Johnson? Oh shit. I literally thought that. But then, I mean, everybody else was really, really good in it. Willem Dafoe, very understated for him, especially after seeing him in The Lighthouse again recently.
Once, not one time.
But I really enjoyed it. I think if I hadn't seen it today, if I'd seen it, like 2 weeks ago or something, it might have made my honorable mentions. But having just literally seen it a few hours ago, I still need time to digest it. I think maybe see it again. But yeah, that wasn't my number one. Does anybody know what my number one is?
Yes.
Maxxxine, maybe.
It is the movie I was craving all year, and it absolutely 100% did not disappoint. I've seen it 6 times this year so far. 3 times in the movie theater. That's the most I've seen a movie in the theater all year. Maxxxine it was the perfect cap to possibly one of the most perfect trilogies since the original Star Wars trilogy. It just was so like, it was everything I wanted and expected, and then more. I did not expect Kevin Bacon to put in one of my favorite performances in the last 5 years. I just didn't. And when he's in that car and he's, bargaining for his life, he was such an absolute fucking sleazeball, and I wanted him to live. I was like, oh no, he's the worst character in the movie, but I want him to live. Mia Goth, just that look of steely determination that she has as Maxxxine. She's just such an amazing actor. I don't know if you guys listened to my interview with Lynn Griffin, but she talked about how her husband, Sean Sullivan, is going to be in Frankenstein, and they were all at a table, and she said she's just the sweetest person, and she had such a wonderful conversation with her. I was like, oh, I love her even more now. When people talk about like 80s movies like Vice Squad and kind of sleazy, 10 to midnight kind of movies, this captured that type of movie so well that, that Hollywood Boulevard late night 80s hooker drama like Angel, or, all those movies. And it captured that so well for me. And that's kind of a genre that I look back fondly on for some reason, because I grew up with it, and I would watch, Up All Night and Night Flight and shit like that. And it embodied that so well for me that I don't think it kind of drove X back for me after the last time I watched it, because I watched them all 3 together about a month ago, and I was just like, I think I like this a little more than X, and I think it's the setting and that kind of hard-boiled look or atmosphere that Ty West has created. And I would love to sit down and talk to him if he's about Vice Squad or, movies like that, to see if that was any sort of inspiration, because it felt like it was made in the 80s.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, the authenticity of that, the look and the feel of it was just remarkable. But another point I want to make about Maxxxine is like, you have to cast your movies. If you're going to make a masterpiece like this, you have to do your casting has to be perfect. It has to be dead on, and you have to have utility players who make other people better. And I think Elizabeth Debicki is kind of the secret MVP of the movie. The way that she elevates scenes, the way she brings Mia Goth up in these scenes, and and the points that she has to make about her role in the world and her role in the movie. There's kind of a double meaning to what she's talking about. It's a superb piece of work, and not that Mia Goth needs any help to be great, but I mean, just the two of them together, though, she's the perfect platform from which to build Maxxxine as a character.
She's like an older sister to her that, is saying, if you fuck up one more time, mom and dad aren't going to love you anymore. And I really I loved that aspect of her character. Another thing I cannot let this movie go without talking about is her dad.
Mm-hmm.
That over the top Paul Lynde Hollywood Squares, just, it was like Bruce Valanche wrote his character. He was so over the top, and it was perfection.
Yes, the build, Ty West's build towards chaos is just superb. It's just he's constricting that hold upon you, and then everything just explodes, and it's so fucking good. Just the way it's symphonic in many ways. The way he rises and falls, and then big rise at the end. So awesome.
Yeah, I hope he stays with A24 and keeps doing you shouldn't be able to make 3 movies in the same world this perfect. Like, there's not a lot of, I shouldn't say there's not a lot of people who could do it. I think a lot of people could do it. There's not a lot of studios that let you do it. And to see how his work is elevated by being with them, and to having these 3 perfect movies that are totally different but also in the same world, is just astonishing to watch and be a part of. And I can't wait to see what does next. I always kind of thought he was, I mean, I know he came out before Ari Aster, but some of his early stuff I liked, but I kind of thought it was like Hereditary light. And now he's kind of in his own he's got his own niche, and I can't wait to see what he does next. And I hope he sticks, with a studio or a distribution company that lets him do what he can do. Let him have full control without outside voices screwing it up. Because these are 3 movies that could have been ruined by a production company. And instead, he had full control over it and made 3 masterpieces. And I mean, as far as I'm going to see, Pearl just keeps getting better.
Right?
Over and over.
And the fact that this guy made Pearl and still made 2 other movies that could potentially compete with it. Like, how many directors can you say that about? My God.
But all in the same world, too. It's not like, Beau is Afraid and Hereditary, Midsummer. Those are 3 totally different movies, and they're all fucking amazing. But these are all 3 in the same world, completely different, and still, it's just insane how talented he is and what he's done.
When X came out, I thought, oh, it's Ty West's Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
Because it's that gritty 70s, and then Pearl came out, and I'm like, oh, it's like a really fucked up Wizard of Oz. And now I'm like, oh, this is his ode to gritty 80s slasher / Vice kind of movies. And I can't wait to see what he does next too. Yeah, there's talk that he might be that there might be more Pearl stories.
Oh wow.
So he said, we don't know what happened to Pearl in the 60 years since Pearl happened, so maybe there's more stuff there, but
she was in the background in scenes in Maxxxine.
What were you going to say, Bob? Sorry.
Just
nearly gets killed or something.
But just your point of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Wizard of Oz, like Vice Squad.
Yeah.
Those are 3 worlds that he made a trilogy in that flowed together. It's just, if you had told me that Ty West, whenever House of the Devil or whatever the hell that movie was he made way back when, which I liked okay at the time, that he was going to go do something like that, I would think it was going to suck, if I'm being completely honest with you. It seemed like his early work, he had a hard time editing some of the stuff out. They were good movies, but a little overlong, some fat on them, but these were just pure perfection. And the fact that they exist, number one, is cool. It's just amazing. Two, that he had no interference from anybody. And three, that he held on to it and didn't let it fall apart. Not only did he not let it fall apart, he made masterpieces. Is just insane.
I totally didn't expect it. I'd written him off, honestly, before X, because he was part of this Texas scene with a couple of other directors who were not very good, and they called it mumblecore. I think they call it. He didn't call it that. People kind of labeled that because it's this low budget aesthetic, very talky, similar characters. And a lot of those movies are really bad.
And he was really, the best of that group.
He was,
but still, it was a bad group.
Associated with it. Yeah, I kind of written him off. And then X was just a revelation. Pearl is an untouchable masterpiece, and Maxxxine is right there with it. It's wow. X gets better because of those two movies as well.
I agree. When he was kind of lumped in with people like Joe Swanberg, and that whole thing, I was like, okay, whatever. But I did like The Innkeepers quite a bit, which then he went on and he directed a ton of TV episodes, and I think he did one of the VHS or one of the ABCs of Death, I think, which were good, but it just wasn't expecting much. And then he showed up in You're Next as an actor. I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's what he's going to do now. And then X came, and I was just like, oh, holy shit. He just blew that old lady's head off. Just I think he's kind of found his niche and his
voice
muse.
Oh, yeah,
in
for sure.
Mia Goth.
Yeah, you can't understand just what she means to this, and he does have a little something left to prove if he can make a movie without her. Because let's not.
But I don't want him to.
How much she is like such an important part of this, not just because she's the lead, but she elevates so much of this. I mean, her performance.
Well, she's a co-writer on Pearl.
It's one of the greatest acting performances I've ever seen in Pearl.
Absolutely.
He does still have something to prove if he can do something without that crutch, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't care if he proves it or not. If he does something with her the rest of his career, I'm on board.
Yeah.
I just like the idea that he does still have something to prove. It might give him a little bit more, and do something just as good.
Well, I mean, how do you do anything this good? I mean, where do you go next? I think that alone is enough to prove.
Maybe he'll make Nosferatu as well. That'll be Mia Goth as Lily Rose Depp's character.
He's gonna pivot. He's gonna pivot into the Marvel universe.
Don't do that. Then I will hate him. I'd be all for Nosferatu. I could then be like, do I like Robert Eggers or Ty West more?
You're gonna make a mumblecore Hawkeye movie.
It's gonna be a TV series. I don't know.
Disgust on Bob's face right now.
If any of these guys go to Marvel, I'm done.
Even Ari Aster?
Especially Ari Aster.
No. Oh, no. All right. Well, there it is. I had The Substance #1. Jeff has Maxxxine. Bob, what did you have?
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu.
I could probably be just tricked into any of them.
Nosferatu. It's a great year. It was a great year. It was a great year for horror. Like we've talked about our honorable mentions with Immaculate, Late Night with the Devil. I mean, my God.
Even the first
Oddity. Yeah.
I look until the end, when they were like kind of retconned it. I watched it again. I was like, oh, you know what? This is actually pretty good.
But Long Legs. I think the lead performance, at least in Smile, is good. I mean, there's just so much really good horror this year. And
genre movies in general. I mean, Furiosa was great. Obviously, Wicked. Those obviously Jeff didn't like Joker, but the people that mattered did.
And if there's one
Sorry.
There's one like big monster hit movie that we haven't mentioned, but I think should get mentioned. And that's Dune Part 2. I thought Dune Part 2 was incredible.
I haven't seen it yet.
Denis Villeneuve is continuing to prove that he can do anything, and I'm happy to see him do it.
He was my number one there for a while, and I just want him to, probably the same thing we guys were thinking with Nosferatu. I just want a non-IP. I know he took it and did something great with it. I haven't seen Part 2 yet, just because of the amount of work that it seems like it's going to be. Plus, if I can't see it in the theater, I'm going to fall asleep. And that's also been really frustrating for me as well, which is why I haven't gotten to a lot of them.
As we're wrapping up, though, I'm very excited about the chance that you two still have to see Queer and The Brutalist, Baby Girl. I do see those. Do check those out, because those are going to be coming out. Nickel Boys, seek that out. Better Man, seek that out. And if you're looking for something right now that no one has talked about this whole year, I'm going to own this one. This one's mine. I don't think anybody else has talked about this movie at all. There's a movie called Family Portrait, starring Durag Campbell, that is just amazing. She is one of the great bubbling under actresses out there. She did was it Emily at 1,300 feet? A girl who jumps out of a plane. She is so good. And in Family Portrait, it's this melding of like a bit of Ari Aster, a bit of a bit of like a real pain, like within the sense of like there's just so many different. It's about a family just trying to take a picture, but there's so much more. There's something happening in every frame that it's such a patient film. It's just inviting you in to just find something that's happening. Such a great movie, and I wish more people had actually heard of Family Portrait. So see that one as well.
It's available. When did that come out?
Back in like July.
Oh, okay.
You need to make me a list, because I haven't seen Champions. I saw the TV Glow. I haven't seen Honora. I haven't seen Strange Darlings. There's so many so many movies on both of your lists that I haven't seen, that I need to just have a physical list in front of me that I can cross off.
And Love Lies Bleeding.
Love Lies Bleeding was another one I can't get my wife to watch. But yeah, I definitely, make me a list. I want to see all these movies. They all sound fantastic. And I mean, you can definitely tell what it's like not being on the podcast based on my list compared to yours. I really do feel like they would. I mean, in some ways it's probably good that my list doesn't just match Sean's like it used to. But the conversation, I mean, the substance definitely would have fallen higher. Maxxxine, if I was able to be part of that conversation, probably as much as you guys had. I might have been on that particular show, but I'm sure it came up throughout the year. Those things definitely play. That's part of the experience for me, and that's definitely something I miss a bunch. So thank you for letting me be on the show.
Yeah, come back soon, please.
Anytime.
That's it for this week. Back to somewhat of a regular format next week. I don't know if we have any new. We've got one new movie I know about, which is called The Damned. That's going to be in theaters, starring Odessa Young. And maybe we can talk more about Nightbitch. I don't know, just because it's. But yeah, I've actually got. We'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure, and Jeff will carry over that. I saw that movie that you chose for our classic, so we'll talk about that one next week as well.
God, wait, which one? It's been
the pregnant woman.
Blood Rage?
Yes. Blood Rage.
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, you tried to send me the wrong one. By the way,
what did I send you to?
The free one is the American remake.
Oh no! You're talking about Inside.
Okay.
Yeah, we never got to talk about Blood Rage for Thanksgiving.
I don't know about Blood Rage. Yeah, no. Inside.
Yeah. Inside. Yeah, the French version is the version to watch.
So I had to find that myself, thanks to you.
It's on Tubi. I watched it on Tubi.
What? No, the American is on Tubi. The French I had to pay for.
I literally watched the French one on Tubi as we were speaking about it.
Maybe it fell off afterwards.
Must have, because it wasn't on there when I went to watch it.
It is funny, though, for all the listeners. I'm still part of the group chat. So every week, what was the classic again?
Well, sometimes we say we're going to do it and then we like forget
Right.
it.
No,
This
it'd
is
be.
part of the reason why we need you back.
I need to just, especially if you have a down week where we're not doing anything. And there's like one movie and it's more just bullshitting. I'll definitely try to be on. I want to, like I said, I saw The Substance the week it came out. I couldn't make it happen. Deadpool, I couldn't make happen. I couldn't even get the Terrifier 3, which would have been nice to have one go against two against one on that one because I know I'm going to like it. But anyway, I will try to be back more. Hopefully 2025 with my daughter going to college and my son going into acting and getting out of sports. Hopefully that's frees up my time a little more. So we'll see. But
All right.
this was fun. Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
I just want everybody to know before we sign off, I just looked it up on Tubi and it's the first one. The first result is the French version.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.